Hey guys, I'm MeeMee and I do Allsorts, and as you can see we have another Scrawlrbox, and this time it's February. Seems like these boxes are taking me quite a while to do because something keeps cropping up and I'm taking like about 2 or 3 weeks to complete them now. But we can get in there, kids, we're getting. So moving on. So if you don't know, Scrawlrbox is an ad subscription box here in the UK. Not sponsored, not affiliated. So without further ado, let's get into unboxing. Also as well, I like to point out that this box is like bone quite a bit in the middle. So I'm quite intrigued to see what's actually in this. Alright, so first up we have our scrollers thing with info of our featured items and the supplies, hints and tips and all that good stuff. And I really do love the colours on this, and I can actually see already that it's like a jellyfish. And I love the design in it because it does actually look like the tendrils and think it was, or the stingers of a jellyfish. Oh wow. Flipping in the right side up, this is absolutely gorgeous. I love how detailed it is, and it's almost like very Zentangle, but you can also see exactly what it is. You know, like you've gone to think these are angelfish, you've got a surgeonfish or a dory fish, and you've got loads of clownfish and all manners like seaweed and stuff in the background. And then there's our featured artist Katie Smith, and her info if you would love to see some more of her amazing work. This is our paper for the month. It's watercolour paper, my favourite. So it's A5, you get 10 sheets, it's 300 GSM or £140. It's 100% cellulose, whatever that means, acid free, and some of the things that I have no idea what it means. pH neutral, and I cannot for the life of me read that, but it says long life, and it's also by my favourite brand, Clairefontaine. And if you don't know, for me personally, I swear by the Clairefontaine brand. Their papers are amazing. Alright, so moving on to our supplies. We have our scroll sticker, which is the same as our featured artist's work. I think I know what this is, and I think I actually got this before. Ooh. Okay, so here we have a watercolour set. I said that I had this before, but I've got like 2 of the pan sets from Derwent, from Scrawlrbox. One of them is just like your normal 12 pans and yellows, greens, blues, just your basic travel set. Another one, if you've seen my other videos, like my horror series, I've got the graphitint ones, and these ones are pastel. Oh, hold on. These colours are absolutely gorgeous. Okay, I cannot wait to see what these turn out to be like. Right, and we have our swatches here, but because it's like on a very translucent piece of whatever this is, I am going to be swatching them out myself. But I do love the names on these, and like Pink Flamingo, Artichoke, Storm Grey, Silver Blue. So I cannot wait to try these out. And you also get a watercolour brush, which I am not going to use because, but honestly, I really do not like watercolour brushes. And it's not my kind of thing, but it is extremely useful if you are going to go travelling with these. But for my purposes, I'm going to have to say no. Okay, so I'm jumping straight into the swatching. So with watercolours, normally you pre-wet them, but I do not have pipettes or a spray bottle with me at the moment, so I'm just going to go in. Ooh. And the camera doesn't even want to focus because it is an absolutely gorgeous, vibrant colour. Alright, and there's all of the colours, and I have to admit they're absolutely gorgeous. Now, watercolours aren't supposed to be translucent, so they're not going to be in like proper opaque, like you can say acrylics or gouache. But I have noticed that some of them do come out a little bit more opaque out of the pan, like especially the coral pink and the turquoise, and maybe a bit of the Pink Flamingo if you really go ham at it. But so far I absolutely love the colour range. But one thing then I would like to note about this pan set is that you can actually remove these individually. You know, and you can just push them out from underneath from there, and you can move them around and have them whichever way you want, but I'm just going to leave them like that because I know where they are. I'm just trying out this paper as well, and it's holding up really well, and I'm not entirely too sure, but some pads do actually look quite chalky, so I don't know whether it's like the binding agent and whatever it is that they use to make watercolours, but it does come out a little bit chalky, but not as chalky as, like some of the really cheap kids watercolour sets that come in like the chalky disc. So I'm going to give the jelly roller a try now in the dry. Yeah, it's not really working that well. Yeah, the jelly roller is definitely struggling on the... I did scribble quite a bit, and it's just coming out like really streaky and not opaque at all, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like jelly roll. But still, I will give it a good go on the actual piece itself. One thing that I've never done is like try to mix pastel colours together, so I really want to try to see what I get. And another good thing about these is that on the other side of the lid you do get these mixing compartments. Okay, so I'm just done like 4 quick mixes. So I've got like the lemon and lavender, which made like a brown shade. I've done the cornflower and blue and lemon, and it came up with like more sappy green. Then I did mint and pink flamingo, and it came out as a bit more of a slate grey. And then I did coral pink and orchid pink, and it came out with more of like a what I would call a rose shade. Alright, so now I've had to play around with what works and what doesn't. Let's see what our prompt for the month is. And it is Between the Reef. So it is something fish related, and I am actually looking forward to seeing what I can create with this. So as always, I will see you in a bit. Okay, so this is one thing I came up with. I went with almost like a traditional Great Barrier Reef kind of thing. So I've got like all of the coral, the rocks and whatever on the bottom. I've got a sea turtle, I've got a moray eel, and this thing down here is supposed to represent a blue-ringed octopus. So what I wanted to do is like, and then add in a couple of like poisonous sea life. Because, I mean, why? Also, as well, interestingly enough, I have actually just found out why these are actually quite chalky, and it's because they're actually gouache watercolours, which I have never heard of before. So it's why these colours are a little bit more opaque than like normal watercolours. So that's a new one for me. Now apparently they're supposed to react like normal watercolours, but since I've never actually heard of gouache watercolours before, this is going to be a new experience, and I really am intrigued to see if they really do act like watercolours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like my usual techniques. I'm going to do a wet and wet background and just work my way from the background forward. Also as well, I have no idea if these sea life creatures are actually part of the Great Barrier Reef. But you know what? As Bob Ross always says, this is your world, you can create what you like. I mean, just even putting it down on wet and wet, you can actually see. Well, I can actually tell like a huge difference, and then it really does look very chalky going down, but then it just goes into like normal watercolours. I feel like I should have stuck this paper down first because it's really buckling over here. I'm going to try adding a bit of green in because this is the ocean and the ocean is not just blue. I'm doing this whilst it's still wet so it can blend out a bit and we can see exactly how badly this paper pills. And I'm only doing the green on the top so it's not going to be overpowering everywhere else. And you will see me like jumping about a bit, and just so that I can work on like a dry area and to not have everything bleed into wet areas. Also, it would be great if I had a hairdryer or something so I can dry a lot quicker. But I have no space, nor do I have a spare hairdryer. I have to admit, I really do like how light these colours are. Just putting it in shadows and just in try and, you know, bring some life into it instead of it being flat. And to do like how they added the grey so I can actually get those like darker colours. And again here I'm like doing a wet and wet technique just so it blends out a bit and gives in more texture. Which is one thing I love about watercolours is the amount of different textures that you can get. And you can also use like different things to get the desired effect. Like if you want snow you can just sprinkle salt on whilst it's still wet and leave it to dry. And you can get like the most amazing, you know, texture with that. Quite messy, but it's well worth it. It's on this as well with this wet and wet technique. I'm getting, you know, I'm able to mix colours like directly on the paper and then, you know, doing it on the palette. I've never really actually used gouache before. I suppose I have, but I don't necessarily use it often. I'm more like into watercolours than anything. But just working around here and at least, you know, and it really does work like gouache, but it's a watercolour. I really do not know how to describe it, but it's just so weird. I think I can get all of these really beautiful opaque colours and they can come out as translucent as well. It's just weird. Bit of shame about the chalky texture though. What I did there was just dabbed in some like the wet paint just with the tissue and just giving it a bit more of a texture. Because whatever there's coral in and it's like quite bumpy, so I'm just trying to get that kind of texture. And it's also quite useful as well to have a piece of tissue around. Okay, so I've just taken a couple of days off whilst I was getting my front door replaced, and I came back to this. Even though that this is really thick paper, it's warped so much. I mean, it's almost rolled up into a burrito and I'm not happy. I don't know whether it was my fault for going ham and really putting a lot of water on it, or it could be the size of the paper, or I have no idea. So I'm just gonna have to live with it until the very end, so let's do that. Okay, so I managed to flatten it out, and I also noticed as well that my camera keeps focusing in and out an awful lot, and I have no idea why it's doing it. I haven't touched anything, the settings are the exact same. I've tried zooming in a bit, I've tried zooming out a bit more, and I'm still getting focusing issues, so I do apologise if this keeps going in and out of focus. And as always, I do not pay attention to my camera battery because I am way too into it, and of course the camera died. So anyway, I'm nearly finished with this, so let's get going. Okay, so for the life of me, I cannot get the jelly roll to work. I don't know what's happened there, but considering that I could not get it to work on top of the watercolour in the swatching stage, I'm going to resort to one of my absolute go-to white gel pens, which is the Uniball Signal, and the cap looks a bit like that because this pen practically works on everything, but again this is down to personal preference. Alright, and there we have it, and the focus is still not working. I really do not know when to begin with this, because all of this was like a brand new experience for me, especially because there were gouache watercolours, which I never knew existed. I only have like bog standard gouache, but that is as far as like the gouache hybrids go. You know, I know you can get acrylic gouache and you know other things, just not. No, I just did not know that you could get it in watercolours. As I was saying, it does leave like a very like chalky texture, which I do not like, and it was quite difficult to work the white gel pens on top, especially in the Sakura jelly roll, which, and again, I told you I am not a fan of fins because I can never get them to work. Other people can, but it's just all down to personal preference. The Uniball Signal, however, did work, even though then it did have problems with the thicker parts, and works a bit better with the like thin layers. Speaking of which, one thing I do like to point out with the watercolours is the fact that they actually laid beautifully. You know, I was actually able to layer up, which is fantastic, especially in this bit of coral here. You know, and I was able to put the colour down no problem. There was minimum lifting if I didn't want it to lift up, which you do get with some watercolours. And also as well, you were able to put down a really thick layer and, you know, just straight off. Like I did with the eel's mouth there, that was just one pass and it's practically opaque. Whereas other watercolours and to have like the common Winsor Newtons, they're more transparent. Whereas because these gouache paints, they're meant to be a bit more opaque. But I do love the variety that you can get, and like I said, where you can go as light as you want or as opaque as you want. So apart from like the chalky texture, I actually really do love these paints, and just kind of wish them to had darker colours. I know I mixed some unusual colours up just to try and separate some pieces, but I kind of wish then I had a couple of darker colours, you know, maybe, you know, like a Scrawlrbox and threw in like a darker pencil or something. I know I could have cheated and done that myself, but that just defeats the whole purpose of using what's in the box. The gel pen was an exception because there was a gel pen in the box, I just could not get it to work. Now, as far as the paper goes, it held up amazingly with these watercolours. It is beautifully thick and textured just the way how I like it. I have no idea what went on down here, but I kind of like it. It's a bit more added texture. But as I mentioned earlier, the only problem I have is the fact that it's really warped, and I have tried to flatten it out a bit, but it's still very warped. Again, I don't know if it's because of the type of watercolour that it is that's making it warp, but the paper held up beautifully. And I didn't even get any pilling whatsoever, and pilling is like the tiny bits of paper that comes up if you go over one area too many times, and I got none of that whatsoever. So overall, this was a very interesting project to do. I have never done an underwater scene before, and working with the gouache watercolours was a very interesting experience, and I'm definitely going to be using them again. So anyway, if you guys would like to have your own Scrawlrbox, I will leave a link in the description box below. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.